Speaker, this afternoon, almost immediately after the Prime Minister delivered his statements to Parliament, the newzealandherald.co.nz website published 3 opinion articles by 3 influential commentators. Mr. John Armstrong started by saying that junkies promised quick march towards economic nirvana still looks like progressing at little more than a crawl. Note the word still. Brian Fowler went a little further. Tax, the Prime Minister proclaims, is a powerful lever for the government to boost the economic performance. It's pity then that instead of grasping the lever, he is proposing to just crook his little finger around it. He endorsed the tax working group's analysis of the problems, but then went on to rule out most of the options the working group put up for addressing these shortcomings. Bernard Hickey's comment said it all. Junkie has just sent generations X and Y a clear message: leaves country now. Well, that member, you are louder than the Prime Minister. Well, just as the leader of the opposition, Honourable Phil Goff, said this afternoon in his reply to the Prime Minister's statement, that once again we've heard the rhetoric, but there is no substance. It's proved Dr. Alan Bollard right. Prime Minister Junkie's promise to catch up with Australia is a hollow one. There is nothing in his speech that represents step change. But the problem is, let me quote Bernard Hickey again, that the Prime Minister did worse than nothing. He shut down the debate. And when his government needed to do something, he picked up an option that would hit the most vulnerable the hardest. Why? Because by raising GST, for instance, it would hurt most those who have to spend all their income to make ends meet, and particularly those with children or the elderly to look after. Culturally speaking, Asians do have the responsibility, take the responsibility to look after the parents when they become less independent. It's very kind for the Prime Minister to say that he's acutely aware of the effect that a rise in GST could have on lower income families. Therefore, he said, should an increase occur, it would have to be accompanied by across-the-board reductions in personal taxes, as well as upfront increases in benefits, New Zealand superannuation, and working for family payments. Let's do a simple math. Compensating people for the rise would have left just $200 million more in revenue out of the $2.15 billion in tax take from extra GST, according to Treasury. So that's $200 million out of $2.15 billion. What's the point? Mr. Junkie, while leader of the opposition, was quoted as saying in the Herald in October 2008 that if National was elected and did a half-decent job at growing the economy, then increasing GST and the top tax rate would not be necessary. It sounded like an admission that National had failed on the economy. Even the tax working group acknowledged that in terms of current income, a higher GST tends to be slightly regressive. They added there were mixed views within the group as to whether the efficiency benefits from increasing GST would be sufficient to outweigh possible equity effects. As we discussed on the Labour MP's blog Red Alert this afternoon, folks on bottom 50, not the top 5, seems to be more sensible. I borrowed the idea from my friend Keith Nuh, spelled as NG, His research shows that New Zealand's tax system is less progressive than Australia's. That is, higher income earners in Australia pay more tax both proportionally and in absolute terms. In New Zealand, the total income earned by bottom 50% of taxpayers is about 17% proportionally, and the total tax they pay is 12%. While in Australia, the bottom 50% of taxpayers pay the same proportion of tax of 12%, but the total income they earned is 25%. That is to say, Australia's bottom 50% of taxpayers have a bigger share of the total income, which means their income is more equitably distributed in Australia before tax is taken into account. If the national government is serious about catching up with Australia, focusing on the bottom 50, not only the top 5, seems to be the starting point. It also helps to understand as to why New Zealand incomes have fallen behind the countries we like to compare ourselves with, including Australia. Between 1990 and 1999, the gap between wages in Australia and New Zealand increased from 18.9% to 28.4%.
How much?
28.4%.
That's huge!
Since then, it has barely moved. Under the last national government, over a long 9 years, average real weekly earners increased by a total of only $1.31. $1.31 a week in 1990 dollars. In sharp contrast, under the 8 years of the Labour-led government, the rate of increase has been 30 times that level. However, over the past year and the national, we have fallen further behind Australia. While that member is talking, we have fallen further behind Australia. New Zealand has gone backwards, not forwards. The national-led government has widened the gap, not narrowed it. The only thing that has been increased steadily, however, is the unemployment rate. New Zealand's unemployment, always lower than Australia's, is now 30% higher. Where is a plan today to get 168,000 unemployed Kiwis back to work? Later this afternoon, we had the pleasure to watch the speech by the Minister for Ethnic Affairs, Honourable Pansy Wong. We are pleased to learn that the Minister is going to do something about the unemployment in terms of her portfolio, and she's organising an ethnic forum. I sincerely hope that the proposed forum will not be just another hot air or a diminished version of the Talkfest of the Job Summit last year. Asian unemployment rate hit 9.2% last week. As my colleague Dr. Rajin Prasad and I urged that the Minister must take immediate action to advocate within government to help jobless Asian people. Asian unemployment in New Zealand is now higher than the national average. What we need is a real plan, not empty rhetoric. Finally, I totally agree to the Prime Minister's statement that New Zealand's future economic performance depends to a large extent on generating and using new ideas. Weta Digital, Icebreaker, Zespri and Fonterra he cited are all good examples. So research and innovation are important, and the R&D tax credits, the Fast Forward scheme, and the tertiary scholarships in various forms are good policies and good investment. As the New Zealand Manufacturers and Exporters Association Chief Executive John Woolley said this afternoon, that jobs follow investment as night follows day. Sadly, for New Zealanders, tomorrow is just another day. The Prime Minister's statement to Parliament this afternoon offered a no bold plan or any plan at all. Thank you.